welcome back, ladies and gents, as we are on our final game for the third matchup of Week 3, Day 1 of the Backus Pro Gaming Series. Drive your energy. Of course, for anything else, we are going to be your casters for today, Arctic at Yo Service Fam. And of course, with me is Atlas after a very intense, yet almost one-sided-ish.
That was kind of
Game 1.
stompy coming from IPT, but of course, I think it came from the draft. I don't think the Kassadin pickup works, because I've seen it in LCL. The Kassadin always gets out-pushed in the early game. He cannot roam. The jungler gets out-pressured as well. Right. So the thing is, it's so dependent on how the jungler rotates to your lane or to other lanes that I don't think the Kassadin is worth picking up. I think there are other mid laners that can pull the job off much more effectively.
Yeah, and hopefully we do see those corrections going into Game 2, because you definitely don't want to miss out on those crucial points at this point going into Week 3.
You also want to deny 2 points.
Yeah, definitely.
From 3 points even from another team, and that's why MSK needs to recover from this and get a 1-1.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, IPT wants to continue getting more wins so they can get closer to that 12 points of their sister team, TME.
Yeah, and of course, before we head all to that, of course, we still have our match and win. Of course, for those of you that are watching, viewers, of course, will unlock a missing skin code, which is worth 250 RP, or of course, equivalent to an Imperial skin. So all you have to do is just wait for the code to flash during this match, and you'll need to guess that one missing letter or number. And of course, if you're first to get it, congratulations. You
just load it up on your client as well.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You'll need that client.
So just have your client ready while waiting for these match and win codes.
There you go. And of course, well, let's go ahead and check out our schedule, because this is going to be our last game. So let's go ahead and just do a quick rundown of what went through this past hours. So of course, during match 1, Manila Eagles actually did a clean stomp onto Acclaim Empire X 2-0, while during match 2 we had a clean equal 1-1 between Asian Arena and Jengski Esports. And going into the standings right now, impressive indeed for Team Manila Eagles as they lead the fray, not even one single team half of what points that they have right now. Of course, in second we have Acclaim Empire X and Imperial Pro Team. In fourth, we have a tie between MSK and TNC Pro Team. In sixth, of course, tied as well is Infused Esports and Jengski Esports. And of course, unfortunately, in eighth right now is newcomer Asian Arena.
Of course, if IPT gets another win against MSK, this will pull them above the halfway point from Manila Eagles, putting them at second place. It actually makes it an easier time for them to reach playoffs, while leaving the rest of the teams here having a much more harder time.
Definitely. So we'll just have to see how this goes for them. Because, interestingly, like I mentioned, like during the past broadcasts, like my projections were completely thrown off based on what performances we saw last split. Because clearly, we're seeing a lot of teams stepping up right now.
That's true.
A lot of hits, a lot of misses at the same time. So anything is just, it's anything goes at this point as far as the standings as we head into the drafting phase. Pick and ban indeed for our 6th and final game for today.
Seeing as how Suzaku had such a hard time against Kaigu's Shen, always being out-traded, the sustained damage, always out-trading the burst damage coming from Jarvan. It seems like the Shen will be actually banned against IPT. They do not want IPT to take advantage of that tankiness and the dueling potential that the Shen has compared to other tanks there in the top lane. As for IPT, still banning out TGs, Thresh, and the Rakan will be taken away from Shadow.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there we go. So Zach actually going to be the next ban from Nixta. So of course, just a quick recap of the roster that we have here. It is going to be Evilifs that will be playing jungle for Imperial Pro Team.
As for MSK, they are putting James down for now. Nixta will be subbing in. We're seeing how he changes the dynamic here. Actually pulling already a ban from IPT. We've seen his Lee Sin quite well, quite recognizable from the other Lee Sins in the PGS. It is banned away from him. Already pulling that threat just from subbing him in. As for MSK, prioritizing that Galio.
Oh man, of course, we have seen a lot of success on this Galio thus far in the Pro Gaming Series, so I'm actually not surprised that MSK will be prioritizing this right away, taking it away from Light.
And it seems like IPT will be prioritizing for Hate their Caitlyn, very safe compared to other AD carries, and Ivalice will be on that Kha'Zix. I really like the priority on the Galio, because at this point in the game, 7.12, actually in the previous patches, Galio's OP. Definitely. Because he fulfills so many roles. He has wave clear in lane, so you can't pressure him. He's very tanky, and his CC, it not only deals lots of damage, after being CC, the Winds of War plus the Justice Punch get on you, it can also peel, and it can also initiate. So all of these tools that Galio has just make him completely broken in this meta, I think.
Definitely. I actually agree with you on that. And plus the fact that given all those details on Galio, looking at the picks that MSK has right now, it's so explosive what we're seeing. So they're bringing out the Gragas as well as the Kennen. So this definitely makes for a deadly, if not a very chaotic team clash for MSK as far as the composition that they have right now. So, of course, looks like IPT will be sticking to this Braum for Shadow.
Seems like they're picking two of the champions that MSK picked last time. A lot of very defensive Braum here, plus the Kazakhs will be the pickup here. Even TG banned away two supports from him. That is going to be the Lulu and Tom Kench. TG will not be pulling those out. As for the top lane, MSK does not want to deal with Suzaku's Fiora as well as the Jarvan, which despite being constantly out-traded by the Shen from Kaigu, still had so much impact, dealing the most damage in the game, the previous game.
There we go, and it looks like it'll be the boy who shattered time for Light, as it is actually being hovered over. Not a clear lock-in yet, but looks like it will be a lock-in indeed for Light right there. So
okay, look at the flex here from MSK, because the Jace can't go mid, even though it's more common top lane. And the Galio, I think we'll be seeing a mid lane Galio for this one, because it helps so much. It can duel the Echo even. Can block out the magic damage, as well as taunt him so he can't use the rest of his skills or use his ulti. Definitely useful against that Echo. And wow, Suzaku picking up the Kled.
oh wow, this will actually be very interesting. So, I mean, looking at MSK right now, like I've been mentioning, it's so explosive, and it looks like we're actually going to be seeing that Kennen on AD carry for Zensho.
With the Bard pickup on TG to help Zensho out, as well as being able to roam around, because at this point, I think Zensho is proficient enough on that Kennen that he can be left alone so that TG can roam around, get his chimes also. So I think it's very effective. Seems like the mid lane Galio will pull through with a teleport as well, so it seems like we'll be seeing double teleports for both of these teams. I really like this pickup. I don't know how good Suzaku can fare in the matchup against the Jace. It's quite dangerous. He is melee. He does have a few gap closing moves, but Kaigo can just push them away once again.
Indeed. Like, there's just so many ways that this Jace could go. I mean, like, this Jace pick could just go so wrong for Suzaku, in my opinion, especially running a Kled. Like you mentioned, there's that range. Not to mention, at the same time, if Suzaku does decide to initiate, it's easily knocked away. So, this will actually be very tricky. I feel like, if anything, Ivalice has a lot of weight to pull on the shoulders right now for IPT.
Needs to be able to gank, and it is a Gragas now, no longer an Ivern. So I think that Ivalice will have a lot more freedom in his pathing. But even still, the counter ganks coming from a Gragas are still very potent and can shut down the Kazakhs. As for the top lane, Suzaku is now more pressured to be a lot more precise with his bear trap and rope, because Kaigo can easily go for a whiff punish if Kaigo misses that bear trap. As for the bot lane, it seems like it's very safe for IPT. Shadow and Hate, very defensive combo, very safe. I don't think they'll be dying as long as they get out of the danger zone of Zensho and TG.
Definitely.
But we'll see. MSK's bot lane still seems very potent. They are going aggressive as well with that Ignite on the board.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the overall composition that MSK drafted, I'm actually quite a fan right now. There's so much you could do. You have a decent amount of engage, you could disengage as well. There's so many ways you could also pick off members of IPT, like get them into a lock. So again, synergy is definitely key here for MSK, and especially knowing MSK, they are known as one of those teams which is so high caliber in terms of mechanics, in terms of team play, in terms of coordination. So if not anybody else, MSK could definitely pull this type of composition off in comparison to other PGS teams which have tried, but didn't quite work out for them as much.
Yeah, MSK will have a way easier time in the early game. After all, Ivalice can get denied so hard. Once either of these mid laners reach level 6, Exosen will have a lot more pressure across the lanes. So we'll see how all that plays out once MSK versus Imperium Pro Team actually starts.
And there we go, ladies and gents, into the final game we go for day 1 of week 3 of the Bacchus Pro Gaming Series 2017 Summer split. Yes, indeed. This is going to be very interesting as MSK and IPT take the stage. So we'll just have to see who will ultimately emerge victorious for this game. Of course, like we mentioned, this could be a good thing for IPT if they make this a 2-0. But of course, knowing MSK, they do not want that chance to happen, and they will fight for this 1-1.
The 1-1 is definitely something that they want. They want to be able to catch up in points. Look at this action already. Oh. Come on. Seems like they will just trade some blows right now. They do have some time to recall and recover their health. Seems like they won't be going for any full-on invades just yet.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially in MSK, they have to be very, very careful. Because they do not want, they want to avoid even the smallest slip-ups, because IPT definitely has a lot more room right now with that lead in the 1-0.
Yeah, and IPT, it has a much stronger level 1, so not taking that fight, very good decision from MSK. After that, seems like regular lines of scrimmage from both of these teams, block out and defend the entrances to their jungles.
And there we go. So yeah, that being said, I actually find it interesting how it looks like Ivalice will be starting off at that red. Very standard, I'd say, almost for a Kha'Zix. But as to how this will transition to a potential gank in the mid or bot lane, I'm actually very interested in seeing. Because I feel like if any of these two junglers could really get things going for either team, then it'll just increase their chances all the more harder, especially with the explosiveness, particularly of Nest's composition.
Seems like IPT knows exactly where Nixta will path around. Because Exosen stayed for longer before going to the mid lane to Winds of War the Raptors. So that's already information for IPT that Nixta possibly went for that Raptor start. Yeah, and it is quite standard. He is, Gragas has a lot of AoE, so the Raptors is just natural.
Yeah, but of course with that confirmation, it's definitely a signal for both Suzaku and Light. Well, Light in general, of course, regardless of wherever the jungler starts, but for Suzaku in particular, hitting that past 3-minute mark to just kind of withdraw a bit. Well, technically, I think either way, because this is a Jace versus Kled matchup, it's not like he has much of a choice.
He has to be able to help out that Jace so it doesn't fall to the Suzaku Kled.
But yeah, look like a little bit of a stun there, getting their poke on both Zencho and TG. But yeah, interesting how this safety works here, but looks like Zencho will be ending up towards the bottom end of the spectrum in terms of that trade, taking quite the damage.
Quite the damage, but they don't want to go for these extended trades. Zencho is running the fervor of battle, while the Warlord's Bloodlust is a very late game choice, as well as sustaining himself in the laning phase, so cannot go for that too much. See Kaigu. There is no ward for Suzaku here. Could be a gank.
Ooh, there we go. Exosen trying to get things going, but unfortunately misses the knockup.
It's quite dangerous for him. Actually, he flashes in. Ivalice getting the first blood. Now he gets the first blood with a flash in under turret. Here comes Nixta. Might go for a revenge. He has the flash. Might go for the body slam flash. Actually goes for it. Takes out Light. Now Ivalice does not have the health to try and fight him. Has to recall here.
Yeah, outside the damage though, we actually see a teleport being popped up for Exosen, of course, to return to lane. Of course, he can very well afford it, because even though he loses that teleport to respond to lanes, later on at level 6, that hero's entrance is kind of a pseudo-presence on the map.
He can't afford to be a little more free with his teleports. After all, this is like the first 4 minutes of the game. You can use that teleport to get back to lane very quickly. Oh! Kaigo actually misses the Empowered Shock Blast. Could have been a kill for him against Suzaku, but missing that was very crucial. Here comes Nixta to try and take him out and finish the job, but he's already at half courage.
Yeah, there we go. It's very interesting indeed. We'll actually be seeing Nixta pursue this, but looks like instead he will be going for the recall, especially since Suzaku gonna play it a little bit more safer, but ooh.
He already has half of his courage filled up. So a gank would actually give Suzaku the chance to fill up his bar to get the Scar back.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Exosen getting a lot of recovery in lane. Dark Seal plus Corrupting Potion means lots of HP recovered.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that being said, it's actually going to be a little bit more trickier taking down this Galio for Ivalice. So I'm actually interested in seeing which lane he'll be prioritizing in this case. Because, well, actually, either way, actually did wonders for Exosen, but I actually like the proactive move from Exosen here to just kind of boost up the amplification of that sustain coming from the Corrupting Potion.
Having a Dark Seal means he can stay in lane a lot longer than Light. It actually helps him out with the mana as well, but I do think that Torrent's Ring would have been better. like Corrupting Potion into, instead of the Dark Seal, the Doran's Ring. It does give him health and AP, same as the Dark Seal, but having 2 Doran's Rings, oh, that might actually be in a fight in the bot lane. Let's see the camera. Nixa trying to go for it. After the mid lane, Exocen gets ganked once again. Justice Punch gets blocked by Light. And he gets another kill against this Galio, making it very hard to take him out.
Oh man, very tricky for Exocen indeed. Not exactly the best start, I'd say. But then again, I feel like he could definitely afford these small deaths. He has that small allowance because later on during these small skirmishes to heavy clashes 5v5, that's where he'll definitely thrive, assuming that he could respond in time. Like I mentioned, Hero's Entrance is quite the charm here on Galio.
The thing is, though, that's giving a kill onto Light and then another one onto Ivalice previously. So having these assassins, these very powerful assassins, one who does physical, one who does magic, them being fed kills is definitely bad for MSK, because that means their itemization will be split. They will have to make a decision whether to fear Ivalice more or to really extend their time alive against Light.
Ooh, Suzaku though cancels back right there. But yeah, nonetheless, doesn't really deter them. But IPT also, I'd say, even though it's not really much right now, because of the, like you mentioned, because Ivalice has this power in the 101, 100% kill participation. Well, then again, these are just 2 kills. But like you meant, there's definitely a lot of fear that MSK has to put into account. They really don't want to get this Kha'Zix going. That being said, I wouldn't actually be as... Maybe one of the proactive things that MSK could do to just kind of make sure that they balance it out is, of course, defensive warding. They definitely don't want to get this Kha'Zix going, that being said.
Most of their warding has been focused around the bot side of the river, because Kaigo is very safe. Suzaku can't afford to push out too far, and Kaigo has a lot of safety with acceleration gate, so that he isn't vulnerable too much to ganks, which means that their vision is around the bot side. But that gank from Ivalice came from the top side, which meant that Exocen left himself completely open. That's one of the ways to deny the power of this OP Galio, is that you... Because early game, he doesn't have a lot of tools yet, so you have to constantly shut him down. But now that he has a Hero's Entrance, it might be hard to deteriorate his effectiveness.
At the same time, though, however, Exocen not only needs to take into account... Oh, okay.
Wow, he flashed for that. Really fearing Ivalice here.
Yeah, the mind games are definitely real for IPT, and it's definitely paying off as MSK. You could definitely feel the... I wouldn't even say necessarily respect, but because of that fear of not wanting to get the Kha'Zix going, they're just playing it a little bit more safer, to the point that they actually lose these crucial summoner spells, which leaves them all the more vulnerable in this case. And
blue buff handout onto Exos, and this will give him so much wave clear with the Winds of War and Justice Punch.
And what's actually interesting here is that Exocen not only needs to worry about Ivalice at this point, but because of the charge from Suzaku as well, where he could easily respond a bit more faster, there's just so many things going on for Exocen right now. So, if anything, I'm expecting some type of relief maybe from Nixta to... It's either the relief from Nixta, the pressure there, as we were seeing right now, actually, we might actually be seeing an attempt.
Or go for that. TG is also around the corner to help out. It looks like he was spotted out by the ward, but look at that. Tempered Fate, forcing the flash out of Light, so both of these mid laners no longer have flash. Now look at the transition from Exos into the mid lane. Giving a little bit more support and pressure, but that does make him lose a little bit CS down their bot lane.
Yeah, definitely. And that being said, like, they couldn't really get much out of that. If anything, the only objective potentially would have been taking down Light, but since that didn't happen, not only did they spend a lot of time committing to that, looks like we'll be seeing a fight.
and Nixa going for this gank. Shadow will be the target here. He is a tanky Braum, but not just yet. Sencho picks up the kill. Now it's going to be Exos and the target of a 3-man gank coming from Light, Ivalice, and Suzaku, who flashes just to get to him. Ivalice gets the isolated damage.
Oh man, this is what I've been talking about right here. The added pressure coming from Suzaku right here. Exocen is just going to be... I mean, like, IPT is going to have a field day in this mid lane right here. But technically, if you think about it, like you mentioned, Galio is one of those pretty OP champions right now. So you want to take every measure necessary to make sure that he doesn't really make much of an impact transitioning into that mid game. Because if left unchecked, then that's where Galio would eventually thrive. Yep. So you want to try to pull him back, put him behind as much as possible so that MSK could utilize that.
This looks like Ivalice Smites out that Infernal Drake before any contest from Minaski can come. Really decisively taking that. Actually, even burning Exosense Teleport. Seems like, yeah, so far, they've done a good job at shutting down 2 of Exosense power on this Galio. One is the constant pressure in lane, because he does have a lot of wave clear. What Light has actually been making sure that Exosen cannot feel safe pushing out the lane, so that's one. But he still has other low economy ways to be useful. Like once its team fights and skirmishes start, no amount of gold will stop the knock-up and the taunt. So it's something that they have to watch out for.
And especially with the composition that Mineski has, it's so easy to get that hero's entrance to get those knockups, because you could get you have the stun from Zensho, you have that tempered freight coming from TG, which could be easily followed by a well-timed hero's entrance, while the members of IPT could have been on hold. So there's just so many ways that this could work for Mineski at this point. Like I mentioned, they could afford these small deaths right here, because it'll eventually transition to better things for them mid-game, should they not fall too behind. And so far, they're actually doing a great job at keeping things at bay.
Mineski is pulling a lot of pressure here in the mid lane, but the ward was there to spot out Zensho and TG, which leaves Hate even more time to CS down his bot lane. Actually, that leads to a very small CS lead, like around 2 waves. That's still pretty substantial.
Definitely. And there we go. So, what's actually interesting here, I gotta commend Exosen, despite the fact that he hasn't had the best time, obviously, with IPT just kind of raining down on his parade over the first 10 minutes of the game. But that being said, looking at the CS difference, it's actually not as big. So good on him for making sure that he's still up to par despite those 3 deaths.
Because he can afford to push the lane out in terms of the safety. He could just Winds of War to CS the backline, and then his passive will take care of the melee minions. He has that safety. The thing is, he can't push out too far, which has led to actually being pressured so hard, getting those 3 deaths. The CS is not the problem, but the fact that he's been a focus of Ivalice is making him have such a hard time. Here comes a charge, actually going onto Kaigu. He will get the hit onto that and help out Ivalice. Kaigu has no more mana, cannot escape any further.
Oh man, that was pretty good for IPT. And that's the strength of having that flood with the charge right there. Easily taking opponents by surprise. And looks like Nixa actually going to try to go for the defense with much effect.
Late to the party. Does defend the turret from dying. But this does reveal his the information that he is their top side. Hate might go for something here in the bot side with his Shadow.
And looking at how things are going, ooh, that's going to be a stun though onto Hate. Will be blocked away by Shadow though. But yeah, looking at how things are going, Tempered Fate.
Would be an engage. That's going to be Hate locked down with a Tempered Fate, but the Slicing Maelstrom cannot get cancelled even by any stuns. Shadow seems like he will have to hide behind the safety of those traps, and Ivalice is signaled to actually take away the blue buff. Well, Exos and no more mana, and he is quite behind in itemization. Light can easily take him out, but the flash saves his life.
Oh man. Nonetheless, though, really great. We actually got a small taste of just how explosive Mineski's composition could be based on what was demonstrated by TG and Zensho. That Tempered Fate, followed by Slicing Maelstrom, is just a small prequel. Imagine what happens when you go into these full 5v5s where you could topple that up with a hero's entrance. It's just CC layer after CC that's going on for Neski right now. So that's definitely something that IPT has to be careful with in the 5v5s. If anything, positioning will definitely be crucial for them going into these fights.
It is very, and if things go wrong for Mineski, they have the safety of the explosive cast to just disengage. So, but if the game goes longer, IPT is going to get stronger and stronger because mid lane is definitely behind in terms of Exosen. And because the thing with Galio mid is that you lose a lot of damage in mid lane. But you are able to take a very high pressure top lane carry like Jace. But the thing is, the mid lane carry is actually very substantial. It's a lot of damage contribution. Not having the Syndra, not having the utility of an Orianna, and the damage as well means that the later the game goes, the more damage IPT will still do, because they have 4 damage threats compared to Mineski's 2. So they have to be careful. If the game goes longer, IPT gets their power spikes, gets their items. That means Mineski, even with the utility and tankiness that they have, cannot match the damage in a full-on team fight.
Exactly. These meat walls can only go on so long for MSK at this point. That being said, they really need to get things going earlier on, but looks like we might actually be seeing that first turret. Explosive cast, though, trying to stop that attempt, though.
Just delaying the inevitable at this point. At least also trying to scare them off from a possible, say, they might have been trying to engage, but MSK is already open in the map here. IPT will be going for that Rift Herald just after taking down top turret.
And looks like without much contest, as I don't think, with that back from Nixta, looks like they will be conceding it at this point. Because, like, easily it's a go-to. After IPT got that top turret, transitioning into the Rift Herald would be the easiest choice to make here.
And it's so dangerous to give it up to IPT. Because from what I've observed throughout all of the pro games, from LCK, from NA LCS, even here in LCL and PGS, if the team that gets Rift Herald has a Caitlyn, the siege that happens once the trigger is actually pulled will be insane. Because you have the safety of the range coming from the Caitlyn, plus the sheer damage that the Rift Herald brings out. It's a potent, deadly combination for these sieges.
Exactly. Topple that with the fact that there's just so much damage across the board as is with IPT's composition, and then they have that Infernal Trait to boot. So there's just so many ways that IPT could go for this, but here we go. Tempered Fate. Flash.
Whoa, nice splash coming from Hate, but here comes a hero's entrance coming from Exos and knocks up Ibelis. He has to rush away. Here comes 4 members of IPT trying to finish the job, but look at that. Shadow being the front line for IPT. Here comes MSK, still going for the chase. Actually takes out Shadow. Light trying to flank, but now he's just alone behind enemy lines. That's going to be Kaigu as well. Goes for the face dive onto the blast cone, but here comes Shadow, still going for it, just guns himself across the wall, but he still gets taken out by Exos and taking the journey. Now it's going to be Light trying to go for an opportunity to take the dive here, but he gets taken out, taunted before he can ulti. It's going to be the shutdown against Zensho, though. It's going to be Ibelis trying to run away, gets a little bit more damage, but Exos and a little bit too tanky. That's going to be Hate alone against 3 members, and Kaiku will want to dive into this and get the kill. That it's going to be the barrel come from Nixta, finishing him off.
Oh man, that's kind of the pseudo ace for MSK right
Pretty much.
Because, yeah, this is, again, one of the troubles that IPT has once they do hit these heavier 5v5s. MSK with all the CC in the world, and technically they didn't even need to layer their CCs in that fight. Like, Hero's Entrance was used a little bit earlier for that protection.
That was enough.
Yeah, that was enough. And it was just all a matter of MSK collapsing all over IPT, getting them scattered off. So, yeah, a great comeback for MSK.
The fact was, it was almost a 3v5. Because what happened there was, because the Hero's Entrance knocked up MSK, and Ibelis was pushed away because he was chunked down. And because he was chunked down, it would have been way too dangerous to dive in. As for Light, he tried to go for the flank behind enemy lines, but as soon as someone on IPT died, he just got destroyed.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and check out here. Tempered, it's actually not connecting onto anybody. That being said, Hit was actually caught up, like flashed out, but in return got the knockup. Ibelis forced to back away, taking so much damage, and then there's the threat of MSK. Frontline across the board, no stopping them. And even though Suzaku kind of converge onto Kaigu right here, in exchange though, MSK getting IPT separated, Light caught in this awkward position where he tried to, like you mentioned, tried to go for the flank, but didn't really do as much, no avail. And as a result, it's just casualty after casualty at this point for IPT.
And Hate, left alone with no longer of his teammates around, means there's an easy pick off. And here comes Ibelis. I don't know why they still try to go for any more here.
That's the tricky part. Yeah. Because Ibelis, he could only get pickoffs when he could get an isolated member of MSK, but because they're grouped together consistently, there's just no way he couldn't do as much. And technically, that's what MSK should be doing. Just converge together, and that automatically puts Ibelis in an awkward position where he just can't get pickoffs right away.
Still, even with that, MSK still behind in terms of the gold, plus the pressure. The objective game, it seems like IPT still has it. 1-1 in terms of turrets, but I think the Infernal Drake does a lot more than the Ocean Drake here.
Definitely, and we'll just have to see how this eventually manifests right here. Looks like Light will be taking down this bot lane turret.
It seems like that they will try to go for the trade-off in the mid lane, but that is going to be Hate. separated from the rest of the team with explosive cast. That's one huge source of DPS taken away from them. Exocen now under duress. That is going to be the dive in from Ivolus, but look at him, immediately chunked down. Zensho takes him out with a slicing maelstrom. Suzuku trying to go for more damage, actually takes out Zensho, flashes away. It's going to be Light full health right now. He can go for more kills here. They are very low. Mineski, now Kaigo in the front line, not very tanky. Look at him, flash to flash away, but Light still wailing on them. Suzaku gets Scarl back, goes onto TG, actually almost takes him out, but Kaigo saves him. Now it's going to be Exocen under duress. That is going to be the Bear Trap on Rope missing, setting up the kill against Light with the Empowered Shock Blast.
That was a messy fight indeed, and plus the fact, what's really interesting here is that so many members of IPT were trying to collapse onto Exocen, but it took so long to even take him down. And in fact,
tanky.
They couldn't even take him down, in fact. So much investment, and it allowed Exocen to just deal as much as he can. That, in a way, it kind of looked like it was slowly going into IPT's favor, but because of the heavy commitment onto Exocen to try to take him down, even though he was that one single target, he's just so tanky that it didn't really manifest into anything.
And once again, Ivolus, even with his 3-1-3, now 3-2-3, he is just way too vulnerable when he dives in. The slicing maelstrom instantly stops any assassination attempts, which makes it very hard for IPT to get their composition going.
And yeah, like I mentioned, looking at the composition that Mineski has, it's a CC fest, to be honest, that Ivolus couldn't really do anything. It's in anything this
just gets locked down.
Yeah, finds himself in an awkward position. So here we go, Mineski. Look at the tankiness here. They just have the strongest resolve going into these tower vibes, knowing how much of an advantage that they have right now. And here we go, Ivolus actually trying to go onto Exocen right here. This is what's interesting. Zensho slicing Maelstrom, sure, he might be the first to fall, but that's all the time Mineski needed to just slowly get things back in there. So IPT eventually, they're going to go for this turn here, and look at the investment here. Exocen eventually going to be going into the front here, and look at all the resources. It's taking so much for IPT to take down. Sure, they do get Nixta, but in exchange, it didn't really... It's pretty much even still for both sides.
They should have given it up after the Bear Trap and Rope missed. After that, they could have been satisfied by taking away 2 members, but now it became a 3-for-2. And the biggest thing there was Hate got knocked away, knocked into a position nearer to Mineski.
There we go.
And just instantly got taken down. Didn't even pull any damage in that team fight. It's going to be the charge coming from Suzaku, however. Zensho already chunked to half health. Look at that Hero's Entrance, knocking up 3 members of IPT. That's going to be Kaigo falling down, but look at the cost that goes for IPT. Triple kill onto Zensho. And it's still going to be Suzaku being taken down here. Scarl goes away, leaves his master alone. And at the end, it's going to be a quadra for the AD carry of Mineski. Might transition this into a Baron.
Oh man, this is so tricky for IPT. Even though technically they pulled the trigger, they got to pick up onto Kaigo. But because of the explosiveness of Mineski composition, even though that was actually a good initiate in my opinion, it's just that since Mineski was so fast in responding to that, it easily swayed heavily back into IPT.
Hero's Entrance denied a lot of damage. Plus, they were already committing in, right? So they had no way of escaping the knockup of the Hero's Entrance, which left them open to the rest of the damage from the Zensho squad.
And you know what? That's what's so hard about IPT's composition right now. It's go big or go home. So here we go. We actually get a great charge. If anything, they get a great collapse onto Mineski here. But because of that Hero's Entrance, it actually delayed so much of IPT's takedown potential here. That being said, it just allows Zensho so much room, gets the instant triple kill, takes down Suzaku to boot here. Like Suzaku, it was just trying to go for Zensho at this point. But that's 3 members of Mineski collapsing onto you. What is one Kled when you have all these 3 people?
Look at that, Exocen flexing some muscles literally with that with that Galio as Mineski goes for the siege. Now they're 2,000 gold ahead, plus they have the Baron. They can extend this gold lead using the gold from these turrets.
And the kill participation on Exocen at this point is absolutely insane.
It's over 90%. 14 out of 16 is huge. And that's the power of the mid lane Galio. That's why I think he's OP. He was 0-3 before, now he has 12 assists.
Oh man, and that being said, I'm actually surprised that IPT didn't take into account the Galio.
I think Galio should be an insta-ban right now.
Exactly.
Because even though sometimes, even Faker lost on mid lane Galio. Late game, they didn't have enough damage because their mid lane was a tank. But at this point of the game, because they can accumulate such a huge lead and their composition actually is not lacking in damage before it reaches super late game, they can just go for this. Look at that, extending their gold lead by taking out more turrets, and now it's going to be a Mountain Drake on their side.
Absolutely crazy. And that being said, you know, what's interesting here is that I like that IPT took the proactive move to try to set the Galio behind. But like we did mention, it doesn't really matter, no matter how behind the Galio is, technically early game, because going into the mid game, that's where things really matter. Hero's entrance.
Yeah.
As a result, like, this Galio was 0-3-1 earlier. And
He's just 12 assists and 3 kills.
Exactly, like, from that
kills.
one assist to a monumental kill participation percentage.
Because Galio is very low economy, low econ. He can function without gold. Not having gold doesn't mean that his knock-up gets any shorter. It doesn't mean that his taunt gets any shorter as well. It does change the damage reduction values, but the CC he can bring, the threat of being counter-engaged on, is still there.
And not to mention the fact that if you complement it with such champions which have that, not only the CC, but the damage as well, in a way, especially with Zensho, it's just so explosive for MSK. I'm loving this draft. If anything, probably one of the best ways you could utilize a Galio and just topple onto an enemy. Like, there's just so many options. Like I mentioned, IPT's composition, go big or go home. And it's kind of what we saw earlier in that
and now they're going home.
And yeah,
they can't possibly go home.
And what I love about MSK's composition is it's explosive, but at the same time, like you mentioned, if things go wrong, one explosive cast could just reset everything.
The explosive cast can also be used offensively, because I've seen Hate be taken down because of the explosive cast over and over again in this game. They've been using it so aggressively because they've accumulated a lead enough on their carries. Look at Hate, 0-3-3 compared to Zensho, 9-2-3. The gold lead, the gold difference between these two AD carries is immense.
And it doesn't even matter that Hate is like up in CS at this point, because like the 9-2-3 speaks for itself, and at this point, Zensho is monumentally ahead on this cannon right now. And the tricky part is that not only is she dishing out a lot of damage, he's also stopping the tracks of IPT here because of that slicing maelstrom to boot.
Ivalice cannot go in, ever. He cannot burst anyone down. And especially since he has the Storm Raider Surge instead of, say, a Thunderlords, that means he cannot burst down anyone. Not Kaigu, not Zensho. He has to be the one to clean up at this point. But it's so hard for IPT to reach the point where Ivalice can even clean up. Because look at the damage reduction on MSK, the taunts, the peel, the CC. It's just unbearable.
And this is just very awkward for a Kha'Zix at this point. Sure, I gotta hand it to Ivalice. He utilized that Kha'Zix to the T early game.
Yes.
But because of the circumstances that he's in right now with the composition that MSK has,
he cannot dive in.
He couldn't really do anything.
Plus, like, look at this. Zensho has a defensive item, the Frozen Mallet, which gives him health. So that means the assassination is even harder. Kaigu has the Death's Dance and the Ninja Tabi. So that means any burst that Ivalice has is delayed.
And not to mention the fact, look at the health bars across the board for MSK. It's just so hard to assassinate a target. I mean, if you're lucky enough to even get an isolated target from MSK, you'll have such... It'll take a while for Ivalice to take a member of MSK down if he's even granted that lucky opportunity, because so far MSK is always grouped up, and that's how they should be playing that game right now.
And look at that, because Ivalice is most of the damage for IPT. Hate is a little bit behind, while Light needs to dive in as well, like with Ivalice, so they both need to dive in, which means that they always get stopped in their tracks. MSK can constantly, confidently get this siege against the mid lane. And it seems like they didn't even get the chance to use the Rift Herald that they got.
Oh, now that you mention it. So, I don't know. At this point, it's just so hard for IPT. The tricky part here is that the only way IPT could have gotten back into this game if they could get those minor pickoffs, but it's just not happening at all.
That's going to be the Tempered Fate taking out two champions of IPT. Look at that. Concept CC coming into that as soon as the Tempered Fate ends. The Hero's Entrance will try and save out Nixta. And the Redemption to heal them back up leaves them with a lot of room to push down this mid lane turret.
And look at, because of how healthy MSK's Mineski in general is with all these life bars across the board.
That's a lot of ultimates burned for Mineski, though. This is leaving IPT a little bit open. Look at Exos and instantly taunting to save his team. Meaning Suzaku instantly gets chunked down, bursted down, has to run away. Ivalis tries to help him out, but he's not dealing any damage to these group targets, and this leaves Zancho open and free to just constantly free hit. That slicing Maelstrom dealing so much damage in CC against IPT, even with a good flank from IPT. They still fall apart.
And at this point, Mineski is on fire. The lead is absolutely insane. There's just no way IPT could even go 5v5 against Mineski. There's just no way with all the CC, with all the engage potential, with all the ways to hold members of IPT, should they even go in. So that being said, like, the only thing that IPT could do right now is just be responsive and try to hold out their base as long as they can.
And a team with Kled, Kha'Zix, and Echo being forced into a responsive position, into a submissive position, it's just so bad. Here IPT has enough threat, and Mineski has enough respect to cancel the Baron attempt. But after this, after the recall, spend their gold, they can just come back with a vengeance. Not even a vengeance. They can just continue the domination in this game.
Oh, man. But let's go ahead and check out what transpired here. Because if anything, Mineski already lost a lot of ults earlier. But that being said, because of, look at the damage output, there's just so much hold onto Suzaku that Suzaku tried to even go in. In fact, if anything, he almost teleported to his demise right here. That being said, look at Zensho turning the tide right here. IPT, considering that they were the ones going for the initiate, immediately turned their backs here. And ultimately, Mineski is just overwhelming them.
If it was any other composition, because Mineski is very ultimate reliant, right? They still had the slicing Maelstrom, but other than that, they were open to a retaliation. But because IPT's composition had Echo, Kha'Zix, and Kled, okay, the Kled is fine, but the Kha'Zix and Echo going in and instantly being bursted down is definitely hard. And since Suzaku got instantly taunted, that was a lot of DPS loss from him.
Oh, man. And the interesting part here is that there's so many divers from IPT that not only is it tricky that even if they dive in, they're so vulnerable, they're easily taken down. Plus the fact that Hate in himself needs that front
Suzaku puts himself in danger against Kaigu and Exosen. He's already chunked down to half health, but it seems like IPT is around the corner. TG gets chunked down as well. Look at Nixta taking so much punishment. Has to burn the explosive cast. This is going to be a reset. Exosen still trying to go for the rest of IPT. He is a very solid wall right now. Tempered Fate almost hitting down Hate, but all that time Zensho was splitting the bot lane. It's going to be Exo trying to cancel the teleports coming from IPT, the recalls rather. And look at that, still Zensho still wailing on his inhibitor, not being phased by the charge from Suzaku because he can easily 1v1 this, especially with a hero's entrance. The rest of IPT goes in to help out, but Exosen can still deal a lot of damage on his hold. Finally, Ivalis gets an isolated target, but it takes him so long, which means that TG and Exosen can take him out, and that's going to be 4 members of IPT down. The 2 inhibitors of IPT being destroyed, and 4 members of Mineski still up to push this inhibitor and these Nexus.
Oh man, and this may be the game here. Light, actually, the last stand here. I don't think he defends this though.
Look at that damage onto him, actually coming to an ace. Mineski recovering so well from last game. That last game was a stomp. Now, they're the ones stomping.
And of course, there we go. Looks like we'll be having the conclusion to day 1 of week 3 of the Pro Gaming Series. Congratulations, Mineski closing out this match with IPT 1-1.
Oh boy, that was a game.
That was crazy insane. I mean, what's interesting here is that game 1, IPT stomp, and then all of a sudden it goes 360. Mineski.
Once again, I think it's the compositions.
Definitely.
It was not only because both of these teams are very good. Any composition you give them, they can probably execute it to the T. But I think the draft is what separates them. In the first game, Cassidy was absolutely useless. In the second game, it's the Kha'Zix that was absolutely useless. Rather, in the early game, pulled through, lots of power, lots of pressure. But later in the game, dealt no damage. The Echo as well, dealt no damage. That's all because of Galio. All because of Galio.
And let's go ahead and check out the standings here to just see just how definitive that was here. But yeah, I mean, it's just so crazy, and the damage at the same time.
Look at that.
Across the board.
Riot, what are you doing? Riot, this is a tank. I bet he also took the most damage here. Took the most damage, dealt the more damage. Had the longest duration of CC. Had the most peels. Had the most counter engages. Riot, you have to nerf this Galio.
And, you know, IPT fought their best here, but just the general OP-ness of the Galio.
And how well they executed the
Yeah,
composition.
exactly. Like the fact that all these champions as well complement each other. I couldn't necessarily just owe it to the Galio. Overall, the drafting as to how this composition was built was, c'est magnifique.
Yeah. The Galio just instantly stops the Kha'Zix and the Echo, combined with how tanky the rest of Mineski's picks were, and how and even the early carry, their main damage dealer, had ways to be tanky, ways to protect himself. So all of that combined to have a very convincing win from Mineski. 1-1, ending it at 1-1, meaning that the skill level for both of these teams is so close.
Definitely. Oh my goodness. Overall, though, very well played though by both Mineski and IPT, clearly showing why they are one of the not only fan favorites, but considered one of the strongest teams, consistent in PGS splits past, even up till now. I mean, crazy, crazy indeed. But of course, that does conclude our day for today. But of course, I believe we will be seeing the final standings for the day after everything's said and done.
And after that, though, we're still having more PGS action tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. We'll also be having more match and win codes just for you, more 250 RP skins for tomorrow. Of course, we've been your shoutcasters. I am Atlas. With me was Arctic. We'll be seeing you tomorrow.
He could go for this, but here we go. Tempered Fate.
Whoa, nice splash coming from Hay, but here comes a hero's entrance coming from Exos and knocks off Ibelis. He has to rush away. Here comes 4 members of IPT trying to finish the job, but look at that. Shadow being the front line for IPT. Here comes Mineski, still going for the chase. Actually takes out Shadow. Light trying to flank, but now he's just alone behind enemy lines. That's going to be Kaigu as well. Goes for the base dive onto the blast cone, but here comes Shadow, still going for it, just guns himself across the wall, but he still gets taken out by Exos and taking the journey. Now it's going to be Light, trying to go for an opportunity to take a dive here, but he gets taken out Haunted before he can ulti. It's going to be the shutdown against Zensho, though. It's going to be Ibelis trying to run away, gets a little bit more damage, but Exos are a little bit too tanky. That's going to be Kate alone against 3 members, and Kaiku will want to dive into this and get the kill. But it's going to be the barrel. It's going to be Kate separated from the rest of the team with explosive cast. That's one huge source of DPS taken away from the Exos, and now under duress, that is going to be the dive in from Ibelis. But look at him, immediately chopped down. Zensho takes him out with a slicing maelstrom. Suzuki trying to go for more damage, actually takes out Zensho, flashes away. It's going to be Light, full health right now. He can go for more kills here. They are very low. Mineski, now Kaigo in the front line, not very tanky. Look at him, flash to flash away, but Light still wailing on them. Suzaku gets Scarl back, goes on to TG, actually almost takes him out, but Kaigo saves him. Now it's going to be Exosen under duress. That is going to be the bear trap on a rope, missing, setting up the kill. However, Zench already comes to half. Look at that hero's entrance, knocking up 3 members of IPT. That's going to be Kaigo falling down, but look at the cost that goes for IPT. Triple kill onto Zensho, and it's still going to be Suzaku being taken down here. Scarl goes away, leaves his master alone, and at the end it's going to be a quadra for the AD carry of Mineski. Might position Exos and instantly taunting to save his team, meaning Suzaku instantly gets chunked down, bursted down, has to run away. Ibelis tries to help him out, but he's not dealing any damage to these group targets, and this leaves Zensho open and free to just constantly free hit. That slicing maelstrom dealing so much damage in CC against IPT, even with a good flank from IPT. They still fall apart.
And at this point, Mineski,
especially with the hero's entrance, the rest of IPT goes in to help out, but Exosen can still deal a lot of damage on his own. Finally, Ibelis gets an isolated target, but it takes him so long, which means that TG and Exosen can take him out, and that's going to be 4 members of IPT down, leave 2 inhibitors of IPT being destroyed, and 4 members of Mineski still up to push this inhibitor and these Nexus.
Oh man, and this may be the game here. Light, actually the last stand here, I don't think he defends this though.
Look at that damage onto him, actually coming to an ace. Mineski recovering so well from last game. That last game was a stop. Now, they're the ones stopping.
And of course, there we go. It looks like we'll be having the conclusion to day 1 of week 3 of the Pro Gaming Series. Congratulations, Mineski closing out this match with IPT 1-1.
Oh boy.